Hi, this is Sean D'Souza, and you're listening to the 3-Month Vacation Podcast. This podcast isn't some magic trick about how to work less. Instead, it's about how to really enjoy the work that you do and to enjoy your vacation time. Hi, it's Sean, and you're listening to the 3-Month Vacation. On 5000 BC, which is our membership site, we get a lot of questions and sub-questions, which is how it should be. Running a business is a very complex task, and it's not very clear how you deal with the situation. And in this case, the situation was competition. And one of our Italian clients, Alberto, asked this question because we were having this discussion, and he said, well, if you were to go back in time and you were in your 20s or 30s and you were starting up, would you just disregard competition? Because obviously he has this idea that I disregard competition. I don't know where he got this idea from, but it's true. I don't care very much about the competition. Well, not in the way that most people think of competition. And today's podcast is about competition. Should we bother with the competition at all? Let's find out. There is a story about an author who wrote a book. This book was incredibly cheap, and as a result, he was able to sell several thousands of them. Now, the competition looked at the increasing volume of sales and decided that they could do the same. However, to their frustration, they found themselves losing money. The reason why they had such significant losses was because the book production cost more than the price than it was being sold for. And in this little tale is the story of competition. Most of us are reasonably obsessed with our competition. We don't start out that way. When we start out, we are in awe of the people who have already made it. We don't consider them to be competition. They are our idols. They are ahead of us. They are people that we admire. And we don't feel that we have to compete against them. However, in time, we make significant progress. And we see that we are on par with them in several respects. And that's when we decide that they are officially competition. And then we start reading all of these articles that tell you should be looking at competition. And you get all these competitor kind of software that tells you should be looking at competition. And now you're in the competition game, which is precisely when things can start to go wrong. Let's say, for example, that you're a competitor of psychotactics. Now, let's say you notice that we're selling home study versions of the article writing course, the sales page course, etc. And now you decide, well, I have the same courses. And now let me create some home study sales for myself as well. All good so far? Well, you've probably been inspired. That's a very good thing. But let's assume that you start selling and then you sell a few home study versions. But your sales are crappy. You're probably selling maybe 2 or 3 copies a month, and you think, well, I'm not doing so well. So you've convinced yourself that something is wrong with your system, and then you keep trying to copy what we're doing. You spend hours trying to tweak your website, trying to track down where we're posting, and copying somewhat what we're doing. You probably do your due diligence in every area except one. You possibly forgot to ask, what is our goal? Simply trying to monitor the competition is fine for inspiration, but if you don't know what the competition is doing, why they're doing it, when they're doing it, you're simply creating a nasty scenario for yourself. Remember the author who wrote that book? Do you know what his goal was? His competitors assumed that it was the profit margin from the book. But it wasn't that. In reality, the author was also losing money. But his goal was not to earn from the sales of the book, but to build a client list. That client list then bought other products, other services from the author. And that's how he made his real fortune. And to get back to the home study versions of psychotactics, we too had a strategy. We decided that we were going to create a brand new version of the article writing course. That was version 2.0. So that needed to be built from the ground up. When creating version 2.0, I didn't refer to the earlier notes or the earlier audio. I took what I knew based on the knowledge I'd gained in the last 10 years, and I put it in the course. However, by the end of the course, just putting all the notes and the audio and the text, and I was also conducting the live article writing course. So I was fried by July. I was completely exhausted. So tired, in fact, that I didn't want to do any courses until 2017. Now, courses form at least a fourth of our income, and not doing the live courses online meant that we would have to forego that income or get it from some other source. It's at this point that my wife Renuka came up with a strategy to sell the home study courses instead. We have a bunch of them on uniqueness, on article writing, on so many things. So we were already selling home study courses, but they weren't doing so well. Now, you wouldn't know that, but they weren't doing so well. And the primary reason why they were not doing so well was because we were promoting the live courses. And the live courses were taking up all the bandwidth. In the newsletter, you're promoting the live course, and this live course and that live course. It's very hard to promote a live course and the home study at the same time. However, 2016 came along, I got very tired, and there was little choice. And at this point, we also make another radical decision. We decided to sell just 35 copies of the course, even though it was digital. It may not make sense to restrict a sale of digital product, but we wanted to create urgency and we wanted to create scarcity, and it's something that you should do too. Anyway, I got taken off the live course schedule, and that was for a whole year. So we had made two quick moves. The first is I got taken off the live schedule, and second is that the home study courses were brought out and we had scarcity and we had urgency. Now, if you're looking at it from an outsider point of view, these are almost impossible to decipher. How are you supposed to know? How are you supposed to know these micro decisions were taken, they were tested, and then they got the results that we were looking for? It's impossible to know, and so you copy, but it's a blind copy. You're spending so much time and so much energy trying to work out what we're doing, when in reality, you should be working on your own product, on your own services, on your own training. If you really want to monitor the competition, believe me, you have a full-time job. Sure, you can find gaps in their products, you can find gaps in their services, and you can find out things like where are they advertising, who are they writing for, who are they writing about, where are they offering their stuff. You can track which podcasts or sites they appear on, what's their Google strategy, what's their social media strategy. And yes, it can save some time with your own research because you can just follow in their tracks. It's possible that you might even figure out some threat that is headed your way. However, by and large, all of these activities are going to suck up a humongous amount of time. In reality, the best form of defense is attack or cooperation. When you think about it, every restaurant is almost automatically a competitor for another restaurant, even if it doesn't serve the same food. However, at least at the top level, restaurant owners will go for the awards, for the Michelin stars. They don't go around poking in the kitchens of other restaurants. To get the Michelin star, they have to up their own game. And there's not that much time, let alone any point in trying to worry about other restaurants. You already have your hands full. You're much better off creating your own uniqueness than worrying about what others are doing. And usually there's no point in beating them because you can join them. Almost all the stuff that we've done over the years has been not as a result of an attack, but instead as a result of cooperation. All the websites that we've guest blogged on, all the podcasts that we've appeared on, every event that I've spoken at, they're all traditionally called competition. We don't see them as competition, and we've worked with so many of them very successfully. And granted, we are small fry, but even when you look at the biggest companies in the world like Windows and Apple, they work together. You might not remember it, but in 1997, Apple was dying. They were struggling for cash. And Bill Gates steps in and he gives $150 million to Apple for shares, of course, non-voting preferred stock, but he gives this money to Apple. So Microsoft said to Apple, hey, can you support Microsoft Office on the Mac for 5 years? And Apple said, yep, we'll do that. And we'll also have Internet Explorer on the Mac. So there was this cooperation. They were bitter enemies, but they worked together. They shook hands and they worked side by side. And that's how it went. Does this mean that you never have to look at the competition? That's your choice, but it takes energy. And that energy is better put worrying about the client or looking for how you can solve the client's problem. They have a problem that they want you to solve. And if you can solve that problem extremely well, there's more than a chance that the clients will choose you. All the information that you have about competition isn't going to change the fact that clients will make their own decision. They will make that decision based on the information that's in front of them. And there's one more thing. The client sees the world differently than we do as business owners. For example, if you were to run a restaurant, you'd be likely to see other restaurants as competition. But clients don't see the world the same way as we do. They see the marketplace as a choice, a place where they can pick and they can choose what they like. If we were to go back to that restaurant analogy, a client would eat Japanese food today, Indian food tomorrow, and gorge on fish and chips on Friday. And it's the same sort of decision making they do when they deal with us at Psychotactics. They will buy a marketing product from us and then buy it from some other marketing company next week or next month. Even if you and I have worked at becoming very unique with our products or services, in the client's eyes, you're mostly a commodity. If they don't get what they want from you, they just go elsewhere. Now, they may find the competition to be inferior. They may come back, which is what most of our clients do. And this is one of the reasons that we encourage them to go to competition. And yes, I get it. It does take a lot of guts to send your clients to competition. But think about it for a second. Aren't they going to do it anyway? Aren't they going to test out all the choices that they have in the market? Take, for instance, the coffee that we drink. Renuka and I drink coffee at 5 different places. Is it because the coffee in cafe number 1 is not good? Or is it cafe number 2 is better? We have different reasons for why we pick this cafe over that one. And clients are going to do the same thing. They're going to buy from competition anyway, with or without our help. So do you think that spending time looking at the competition is still a good use of your energy? The more time you try to figure out what the competition is doing, the more likely you are to stay a commodity because you don't have time to work on your own product. You don't have time to make that version 2, version 3.0. You don't have that energy and that time. And when clients hop from one place to another, they evaluate the benefit that they're getting from one place or the other. And once they decide, okay, this place is the best cafe or the best marketing place, they kind of tend to buy more from that place than from any other place. They're still buying from other places, but they have a preference. And you have to be working towards being the preference rather than looking over your shoulder at what is competition doing all the time. And at the point of being repetitive, I'll say it again. Trying to pay attention to the competition is a waste of time. Too much changes too quickly, and by the time you figure out what the competition is doing, they're well down the track. And if we go back to that earliest example where those wannabe authors tried to sell books just like the other author, well, they figured out too late that the strategy was completely different, and they lost all their money and they lost all that time and energy. No one is saying that you should stick your head into the ground. No one is saying that you should not pay attention to what's going on around you. However, other than cursory knowledge of what's happening in the market, it's really a complete waste of time to bother with your competition. I grew up reading Mad Magazine as a kid, and I used to love their slogan, and this is the slogan that we live by, which is number one in a field of one. I think that is something worth aspiring for. And that brings us to the end of this short podcast, this in-between. Let's do a little summary. The first thing is that you can't really copy the competition because they start doing something, and by the time you figure out what their strategy is and what the results are, well, it's almost too late. In fact, it is too late, and you never know the real strategy, the real results, because nobody tells you. I mean, they're always trying to paint this wonderful, marvelous kind of scenario. They'll always tell you, hey, we sold this workshop and we made $30,000. I have known people to spend $35,000 on that same workshop, which means that they made $30,000 and they lost $5,000. So you're always going to get this picture which you're not aware of, and you try to do the same thing and you lose. Now, this isn't to suggest that you don't do similar stuff like your competition. In fact, it's a very good strategy because they're paving the way. They're telling you, this is what we did, this is how we did it, and then, of course, you have to figure it out yourself. So that's the first thing, that trying to copy them is just impossible because they move too quickly for your needs. The second thing is that it's diverting from you improving your own products and your own services. And this is a real problem because once you start to divert from there, then the clients are going to figure that out because they're shopping anyway. They're going to this place and that place, and you think, well, they should be at my place, and they're never there. This used to bug me a lot when we started out, and it doesn't bug me anymore because I know this is what I do. This is what you do. So I spend more time trying to fix my products and services. That's why we treat them like versions, and that's what you should do as well. And the third thing is just the clients do what they do. They just hop around. And ideally, you should have the guts to say, go to competition. And this brings us to the end of this podcast. And I'll tell you a little story about this go to competition. But let's see the one thing that we can do, and then we'll go to the story. I think the one thing that you can do today is something that I haven't covered in this podcast, and that is to follow 4 or 5 newsletters, not 25 newsletters. In fact, one of the things that you can do is unsubscribe yourself from all of those people who are promising you instant riches, all this button-pressing stuff that makes you instantly popular and wonderful, right? Get rid of all of that stuff, and then follow 4 or 5 people and see what kind of strategy they're rolling out. And that is a really good way to go about stuff. What we did when we started out was we joined other places. We joined a membership site. We bought into some course. We bought into a workshop. And what that taught us was this real life experience. It gave us this, okay, we are now in the membership site. How is it run? What is happening? And that is a much better experience where you pay to learn from the competitor and see from an insider point of view what they're doing. I think that is the one thing that you should do, that you should somehow get into the system, and then you can work alongside that competitor. In fact, what I found is that once you sign up for something, then you have access to your competitor, which means that you can cooperate with them, which is largely what we've done. And that brings us to the end of this podcast. So what's happening in Psychotactics land? Well, on the 13th of October, we have the article writing self-study. As you know, the story of the self-studies now. There are only 35 copies. There will not be a 36th copy available this year. So you'd have to wait somewhere mid next year to get the copy. So if you're looking for the article writing course and you've been waiting for a while, then I would suggest that you get yourself on the waiting list, because on the 13th of October, that's what you'll get. You'll get an offer to buy into the article writing course. The second thing is the 10th of November, which is the pre-sale course. And this is a reasonably expensive course. It's a single document, but it shows you how we go about pre-selling. If you've noticed, we tend to sell out most of our courses, our products and stuff in maybe 24 hours, sometimes even in 20 minutes. And there is a strategy behind that, and this strategy is all outlined in the pre-sale course. As you know, I tell you secrets, whatever secrets you want to know. You can email me and you can find out a whole bunch of stuff that you wanted to know. But the course gives you a system that you build on, and then you email me, and then you get more stuff or more information on the system. So that's preferable. There's also 5000 BC, and this is the whole point. You know, Alberto asked this question in 5000 BC. He has access to me on an almost daily basis, because that's what I do in 5000 BC. I'm there all the time. So join us in 5000 BC, and we'll see you on one of the courses or next year in one of the live workshops. We're pretty much done for this year. There might be a meetup in Houston the day before Thanksgiving. Yes, I think that's the day. So the day before Thanksgiving, we're planning to have a meetup in Houston. So more details will come on that very shortly. But this is me, Sean D'Souza, saying bye for now. Bye-bye. You're still listening, aren't you? Anyway, so there was this story. When I first started out in Auckland as a marketer, that's what I called myself. Well, I had one or two clients. One was QuickBooks, and you probably know them as part of Intuit. They're this big accounting company. And so they had a branch here, and I used to consult with them. But I also used to consult with another company called Danny's Pita Bread. And I used to be a great bread lover. I don't eat much bread anymore, but I adored bread, and the bread that came out from Danny's was just fabulous. So one of the perks of working with a pita bread company was that I would get a trunk full of bread. And he said, you know, just keep it in the freezer. It'll be fine when you defrost it. So I'd go home with this trunk full of bread. And one day I'm loading the trunk with the bread, and his wife comes along and she says, "Have you gone and tasted the bread of our competition?" And I go, "No." And she said, "You should." And I say, "Well, that doesn't make any sense. I have loads of bread here. Why should I go and taste their bread? I'm convinced that your bread is great." And she goes, "No, you should go and buy their bread." And so that's what I did. I went to the supermarket and I bought the bread of the competition. And I took the bread home. My dad was visiting from India at that point in time. And I served him the bread. I didn't eat the bread myself. I gave him the bread. And he said, "Sean, you should really speak to Danny about this, because his bread is really inconsistent. It's really good on some days, and like today, it's really bad." And that was the message. Danny was spending more time fixing his bread rather than worrying about the competition. And that was a great lesson for me, as I hope it is for you. So that's me, Sean D'Souza, saying bye for now. Bye-bye.